It still feels surreal to me that we are in person.
I know.
In real clothes.
In
I'm
real
looking
life.
at real, actual humans in front of me, and I don't know when that's going to get old, but for now, I'm just like embracing it and leaning into it. And welcome to New York, Tara. You flew in from Memphis, right?
I did.
Yesterday? So.
No, on Sunday.
Sunday? Oh, so you've been here all week. Oh, nice.
I've been here a while.
Well, I'm so excited to chat with you, and I want to start off with congratulations, because this is an amazing book, and this has been an amazing publication. Jenna Pick, national bestseller,
right.
Some great reviews, which I'm going to read from, actually, because,
Lord.
you know, it's always nice to hear kind words about your work in person.
No, I'm going to leave. I don't want it.
So the New York Times has called Memphis a rhapsodic hymn to Black women. I love that line personally. The Washington Post says, with her richly impressionistic style, Stringfellow captures the changes transforming Memphis in the latter half of the 20th century.
They said that?
Oh, you haven't read this? Oh,
No.
my breaking news here? Got it.
I don't read the reviews.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, well, this is good then. I'm sharing something positive with you. She conveys the infuriating, sometimes deadly humiliations that Black veterans endured after serving their country abroad, and she has a particularly good ear for the conversation among friends who hold this community together.
Aw, that's nice of them.
I know, that's so nice, right? And I'm sure that if you don't read your critical reviews, you definitely don't read your Amazon reviews. Is that also true?
I don't go on any of those things.
I am here to also tell you that the Amazon reviews are beautiful and positive and effusive. And if I could offer a sampling of those, just so that you know it's out there. Because sometimes it's nice, like critics are one thing, but like you're writing for real readers, right? And so you want to know what they have to say. So they say Memphis is a book that pulls you in immediately with amazing character voices and incredible descriptions. A thoroughly engaging story of survival, strength, healing, and love in the bond between mothers and sisters. A great debut novel. And this is the kind of book that is filled with tragedy and triumph, and you are sucked into each woman's story. You're rooting for them. Expertly written. I mean, right? So,
thank y'all.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's why I printed these out.
Oh my goodness.
So how does it feel? Have you taken a moment to really let this all sink in? And
no.
Does it feel surreal still?
Very surreal. It feels very weird. I go to sleep at night and I dream like I'm in the New York Times, and then I wake up and I'm in the New York Times. I don't read it, but people tell me like I'm in it. And I say, oh, okay, thank you. And then, but then I still have to do normal things. Like there's something wrong with my car. And I can't find and I can't find an Audi repairman in Memphis like for a European mechanic until June. So I don't know. I guess I have to buy a car. Like I don't know what happens now with my life. So it is. I still have to walk my dog and, find somebody to hang my curtains for me. Like, I still have to do normal people things. And then I get calls like, oh, you have Hollywood is calling. So it's just very weird. It's very
glamorous
weird.
Writers. They're just like us, right? Like, that could be a whole feature in a magazine. Where were you and how did you find out the Jenna news? I always love that story. Like what? Because you have to keep it a secret for so long. So are you a good secret keeper? And
oh yeah, I'm an attorney, so I'll just and I'm a Scorpio, so we mind our business. We're not trying to be out in nobody's business. But I was in bed with COVID when it happened. I went down to NOLA for New Year's. It was fun. I don't remember much.
That's what happens in NOLA.
I don't remember much. But then I got COVID like that Thursday night after New Year's, and I was just saying, I died. This is how I died. And I was all vaccinated and boosted. It's horrible. And so I was in bed like barely breathing, and they were all so excited. Sumia was on the call, Katie, like they were all so, Michelle, they were screaming, and I was just like,
you're like, great news, okay.
I said, that sounds nice. I did. I literally said, I was like, okay, that sounds nice. And then I don't really remember anything. Like I had the brain fog with COVID, so I don't really remember what happened.
Did you get a chance to celebrate later when you felt better, or just?
I don't remember.
Yeah. All blur.
Like COVID was a fog.
Yeah.
But I think I'll celebrate this summer when things have died down. I'll pour myself a drink. I'll have my dog on my lap, and I'll say, we did it.
You'll be in your new car. It'll be perfect.
Oh, God willing. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. My life's in shambles still.
So we now know that this culminates in this amazing publication, but take us back to the beginning. Like, where did this story originate? How did it come to be? Tell us everything.
So Lord, you grow up hearing lore, family lore. Like, there's not a particular Easter or Thanksgiving that I can remember. I just remembered hearing all these stories and then experiencing life with my aunties or my siblings and my mom, like seeing that happen. So when pivotal points of my life would happen, I would shut up and I'd say, remember this, you have to write. I mean, even if it was tragic, even if I saw my mom going through her divorce, playing Anita Baker's fairy tales over and over and over, just trying to make it to sundown, I said, remember this, remember the poverty you were in and having to go and pay for things with food stamps, because one day you won't have to do that, Tar. Like, remember all of this, soak it in, and write. And when you write, you better write so every sentence sings. Every sentence better sound like Memphis.
It's amazing.
So that's what I don't know. That was the beginning of it, I guess. But I knew I had a story to tell, even as a young girl. 3 years old sometimes, 10 years old. I mean.
And then were you journaling and taking notes to remember?
Yes.
Or you, okay, yeah. I was going to say, you must have a photographic memory if you're just
and I do
filing
that
it away.
too.
Oh, yeah, that
Yes. But I journal. Yes, I journal. I feel like my oldest journal I have, I think I started it when I was 14 or something.
Wow.
Yeah, and I still have it.
And so were the characters then, did they come to you kind of fully formed, or had they morphed, or are they, kind of informed by composites of real people drawn from your personal experience and family? Or?
All of the above. Sometimes I wanted Auntie August to have like a moment of triumph, and so sometimes that would, change the character, but I knew I wanted her to succeed in some way, or sometimes, I needed Joan to have a failure or to experience tension in some way, so then she would change. So, but yes, all of the women are based off women I know, or shades of myself.
Yeah. And that
it's
makes
easy.
them so relatable, right?
Yeah.
Although when the women in your life are reading this story, were they looking for themselves in the pages, and did they have any objections or any, oh my God, that's so me, I recognize myself.
My Auntie Rita came to my reading in Chicago a week ago, and she said, and she was texting my daddy, and she said, well, Daryl, am I crazy in the book? Like, what's she saying about me? And my dad's like, no, it's fine, just read it. Just like, get it, read it, it's fine. And then she said, oh, okay. But like, how my Auntie Rita is tall, she does have dark skin, she is full-bodied, she did go to school at Northern when she was 17 years old. She's a savant at certain things. She's really good at engineering. I don't know why or what that really is, but I just know she does it well. So like, there's so many brilliant, talented women in my family. It was easy to choose, it was easy to have those moments. And then certain aunties in my family are hilarious. Just really funny. So even the humor in the book, or my best friends are here tonight.
Oh,
so
shout
whenever,
out to the besties in the front row. We love when the besties
Michael,
come to the
hi
reading.
Nolly. We met when I was 17 at Northwestern.
Aw.
So like sometimes I would just look at old G chats from like 2003. I know. I'm sorry. We have a lot of research, a lot of substance but I would just look at how our vernacular, how we talk to each other, how we vibe when we sit down over whiskey and we're like, okay, what's happening now with our lives?
Yeah.
So I just pulled. It was very easy to write this book. I'm going to be honest. It was. Well, don't ask Katie that on a deadline. On a deadline, I said, I think this is how I die. I don't know how people do this. But when I was just writing it freely, not on a deadline, in Cuba on a beach, it was the best time of my life. No complaints.
Yeah, because what is your writing process then? Are you one of these that like gets up with the sun and then has the cup of tea and then it pours out and then you go for a hike and now I have to hate you? Is that okay? That's exactly how it. Got it.
Instead of tea, it's coffee. It's usually a beautiful Italian man handing me the coffee, maybe a cigarette, and then he lights it for me and then he leaves and then I'm like, okay, bye. And then I write until I get hungry, like 11:30 noon. I make a huge siesta, huge brunch, huge breakfast. I have all the fixins, and then I take a nap, and then I wake up at like 3, and then I go back on the beach because it's like finally like less hot to be on the beach. So I get to the beach 3:34, and I kick it. And then I get back to my little house, which is always on the beach. And then I edit what I've written that day from like cocktail hour, from like probably 5 till 7:30 till I get hungry again. And I'm like, oh, wait, eat. I need to eat. And so then I get dressed and I go to dinner. Or I make dinner, you know. And then I wake up and I do it. So, but I wake up early.
Amazing.
I wake up at like maybe 6.
Oh, wow.
6:30. Like I'm up with like the people who make the cappuccinos, and it's just us. And that's how I write.
The hack I'm taking away from this is edit over cocktails. You said a lot of things, but what I'm taking away is my new method, edit over cocktails.
I have to write sober. I don't know how other writers get this like drinking habit. I'd love that, but I can't do that. Like I need to just be completely sober. Coffee, a lot of coffee. You know, a lot of cigarette, just really focused, and that's it. Not even food. Like I don't like to get distracted with the eating. I just wait for that until I get real hungry.
That's your reward.
That's my reward.
Sometimes I need that too, like a little motivation to get you through.
Yeah.
Well, your editor, Katie, is here. And shout out to, as an editor, I always like to shout out the editors.
To Katie.
Love that. Love your beautiful thank you to her in the acknowledgments. But I feel like you and Katie both had your work cut out for you in that you took a very unconventional approach to the time frame here. I mean, it's when you don't tell a story in linear order. This was like really ambitious in terms of the time frame, and I imagine it was, you know, a little bit of a puzzle to put together and to make sure the pieces connected right. So can you talk about your choice to use this time frame?
That's the brilliance of Kate. I had nothing to do with that. I wrote it chronologically. I wrote it from the flood. 1937, I finished in 2003. She was the one who took it apart. She had it printed out on the floor of her home for a month, like over the holidays. She couldn't walk. I was texting her. I was like, how do y'all walk? She said, we don't. This room is mine until I finish. And I thought about, you know, Jo and Little Women in the attic over candlelight with all of her pages that she would handwrite. And that's what Katie did. And it looked crazy. It looked very serial killer-y.
Yeah, picturing Homeland with the board, Carrie.
And I did the same thing. I had a bulletin board. Mine was on the wall, though. I couldn't do the floor because our dogs, we both had puppies at the time, so our dogs were eating parts of the book. It was horrible. And so I had it on a wall, and it had different colored yarn for the different women and where the story was going. But it was really Katie's idea to break it up in this way and create the tension. I had little to no I can't take credit for that at all. That's the brilliance of Katie.
That's amazing. Well, shout out again to Katie.
Yes.
Well, you know, what goes into a book, putting on my editor hat for so long, what goes into a book obviously is like a great structure for the storytelling, right? But also, as you talked about earlier, beautiful sentences. I mean, I love your commitment to say, oh my God, you know, every sentence is going to sing. And I think a lot of times that comes from poetry or being a trained poet, right? As an editor, I was always like, if you want a good book written, have a poet write it, right? Because every sentence really matters, case in point, you know? And so how do you think your passion for poetry has informed your prose and vice versa? And do you have a preference for a medium or a...
I'm born a poet. I think my preference will always be poetry. It's harder. It's harder to write a single poem than it is a whole chapter. You know, to write a single poem in an Elizabethan sonnet in perfect iambic pentameter, only a handful of people in this world can do that. To write an Italian sonnet, to write haiku in its truest form, only certain people put on this earth can do that. I consider it the highest calling, the highest craft of writing is poetry. So that's my home place. It's the most difficult place. I will always be a student of poetry. I will never feel like I've mastered poetry. And no one should ever feel like they've mastered poetry.
Like, nailed it, moved on.
Yeah, got this. But, you know, writing fiction is just fun. It's you get to be like the kind of Dexter series, like you get to have your house in shambles and to do all these stories and see what happens. And you get to kind of delve in and be a little, I hate to use this word crazy, but a little crazy about it. You get to, when I was writing Memphis, sometimes I would talk to myself as one of the characters. I'd be in the head of August for a week. I'd be in the head of Joan. Like, it's an amazing feeling. It's hard to even describe, but I live it, I dream it, I beat it. There were days I wasn't doing like normal because I was just so wrapped up in the book.
Do you believe in getting in the zone? Like, is it or a flow or like that?
I would run up, because I was still in my daddy's basement when I got the book deal. So I'd run up to his top floor in his office and I'd burst through the door. I said, well, what should happen next? And I would just say things, and then he would just be there kind of stupefied, and then I'd run back downstairs. He wouldn't answer me. He'd be like, are you okay? And then he's like, are you eating? And then I'd just run back downstairs, and I'm like, I got it, and I'd write. I get a lot of inspiration in the shower.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in the shower. There's one chapter, I don't want to give it away, but one character says, I don't know, tell him that nigga dead. And I didn't know what I was going to say next in the chapter. And so I was in the shower, and I was like, what do these people want from me? How do I end this chapter? And I was like, I don't know, Tara, just tell him that nigga dead. And I said,
boom.
Eureka! I was like, that's what she's going to say. Like, I was just sick of writing. I literally told myself something, I don't know, Tara, tell him that nigga dead. I was like, that is what Miss Dawn's going to say. She's going to say, tell him that nigga, because I am tired of writing.
Did you leave, like, wet footprints to get to the laptop?
I ran. Thank God I had, like, the whole basement. My dad redid, so it was like a little apartment. So I had, like, a shower down there and everything, a little kitchenette. So I ran out the shower, and I just wrote it down in my moleskin, and I ran back to the shower. And then I was twerking in the shower for a bit. I said, I got this writing thing. I said, y'all ain't gonna get me. I got this easy. I said, I make this look good. I said, Hemingway, who? I said, that white boy can't do what I do. With my hair wet, I can still do it better.
That's amazing.
So it's fun. It's fun. I talk to myself. I'll finish a good paragraph. I'd be like, hot damn, girl. You better go somewhere. I'll stand up from my writing desk and I'd be like, and then I'll run around the house.
I mean, it's such a lonely process and isolating. You really do have to kind of celebrate yourself in these moments, right? And it can be so grueling and torturous too, writing and editing, that it's nice to feel like, you can celebrate these moments along the way.
Everybody in Cuba
thought
I was crazy. And they're like, what is this woman doing? Why is she just screaming to herself?
Did you write the whole book in Cuba? No, you didn't, because you're one of the only acknowledgments that I've read that could read like a Yelp review, like with your list of restaurants in the back. I was like, oh, this is actually very helpful. Next time I'm in London, I will go to this place to eat, if not write. So it sounds like you were jet setting.
I was jet setting. I wrote it all over. I like to travel. I would save up my little pennies. As a 10th grade English teacher, I wouldn't go nowhere all year. And then I would go somewhere in the summers, get a house real cheap on the beach. Cuba's a cheap place to live, and and just like
be inspired, right? It's sometimes nice just to be out and about and seeing different things and smelling different smells and looking at different people.
Right. It was a lovely experience. And then the restaurants in the back, someone on Instagram messaged me today that said someone on Goodreads was saying that was wrong, that I was throwing American restaurants under the bus, that I shouldn't have done that. But I really do think that I wanted to make a list of restaurants that fed me, especially during COVID, and I wanted to give a shout out to all the restaurant workers. So many restaurant workers died during COVID, and then also I wanted to give a safe place for other Black women to go and eat and not feel a kind of way. Like these places will treat you with respect. You don't always get treated with respect where you, as you know, where you show up, they're like, what? Sometimes. So.
Well, it was a little bit reminding me of the Green Book, right? Like traveling through the South back in the day, right? When travelers before you would give you a heads up about what was safe and what was, where you'd be welcome, and we still do that in a very informal way. Speaking of travel, I have actually never been to Memphis. All the places in the world. I know. But this book, two things made me feel like I have been to Memphis, and also made me want to go to Memphis. So can you talk about, sort of Memphis really is a character in this book, and specifically there are so many or so few places, I would say, in America where you really associate it with Blackness and Black history, right? There's DC, Atlanta, and I would put Memphis on that list as like a kind of quintessential Black city.
It is a Black city.
And so can you talk about, sort of, were you worried about getting it Right? Is this like a love letter to your city?
Yeah. No, why would I? No, I am Memphis.
Yeah.
I run that city. No. Like, no, I'm from it. Why would I be like I am it. Like it is me.
You know what's so funny? I only ask you that because I wrote a book set in Philadelphia with my writing partner who's from Philly, and she really has born and raised in Philly and has so much Philly loyalty that she was worried about getting it right. She was like, I just want to make sure my city's like represented the exact right way and have the right people and the right descriptions and the right, I don't know. I've never written a book set in my hometown, so I don't know.
No, it's a vibe. Memphis is a vibe. I think I carry Memphis around with me when I'm even not in Memphis. Like I'll be somewhere and then somebody will say she's from Memphis and then everyone will nod, be like, oh, okay, like we get it now.
This feels like a meme of tell me you're from Memphis without saying you're from Memphis.
Right. So I'm not worried, but I do want every Black woman in Memphis to hopefully read the book, love it, know it's a gift for them. But no, I wasn't worried about getting Memphis right. Memphis is so Memphis. Like the city itself is such a character when you're in the city. You can't help. Memphis is the most beautiful place in the world. Like of all the places I lived, it is. We're winning in the playoffs right now. Like Ja Morant. Honestly, you're going to hear it here first, but I haven't seen anyone fly like him since Jordan. The man can do things that are impossible to do, and he does them, and he's 21 years old. Like it's an amazing, beautiful Black city. 75% of Memphis is Black. Even the white folk in Memphis cool. Like I was just talking to somebody about the white folk in Memphis, and they're like, no, but they cool though. Like
Stanley. We love Stanley. Was he based on somebody? Like the Stanley character?
Yeah.
This is, for those who haven't read it, this is a white Jewish man who owns a store where everybody is getting their goods and so forth.
Oh, Stanley. He's one of my favorites. Stanley Koplow is based off Jody Koplow, who was my first boyfriend at Northwestern. And he was good. He was a good one, right? Right, y'all?
Yeah.
He was good.
Oh, they're co-signing. Okay,
yeah. Oh, Joe Scala.
Does he know that his character is? Okay.
He sent me a text this past Christmas, and it was a picture of some greens with some ham hocks in it that he had made. I said, what? I said, white boy, what is this? He said, I got a craving and I miss you and your mom. Aww. And so I decided to make greens for my family. I said, oh my God, what have I created?
Well, they look good in the picture, but did he send you a taste is the real...
I'm not going to eat that white boy. No, but it was real cute. He tried. It looked good. I said, okay. I was real shocked. But no, I mean... him and his mom, really. It's more of a shout out to her too. Like she took me in when she didn't have to. They taught me about wine. Like they were some good peoples. And then also half of my family is Jewish. They live in Israel.
Oh, wow. Oh.
And the first poem that I've written that was translated into a different language was Hebrew. So it was really also a shout out to that side of my family who's Jewish. And then also I really wanted to make a discourse on the anti-Semitism that was happening in America. As many synagogues have been shot up as Black churches, and I don't understand why that is. And I just remember, at Northwestern, we would have Seders that were Jewish and Black that were hosted by FMO, our student union. Michael Collins used to be the head of FMO. 4 members only, our Black student union at Northwestern. And they would partner with Hillel to do these Seders. And Jody and I would go. We'd break bread. We'd drink Manischewitz. We'd read Psalms and from the Torah. It was beautiful.
Oh, that sounds so nice.
Yeah, and we do that every single year. And Northwestern has a history of Jewish and Black students overtaking our treasury in order to create an African American Studies department. So I don't know, the Jewish kids in Northwestern, they lit. Like they cool. And so I kind of wanted to shout them out, and I just wanted to thank certain white folk who over the years have made me feel very much like a daughter in their home. And they didn't have to, not everyone does that.
Yeah,
right? So it was really just an homage to a thank you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So, as Black writers, there's a, ongoing tension and challenge, I would say, in balancing, writing about trauma and history and writing about hope and triumph, right? Like it's kind of a fine line to draw from. Is that because you want to avoid all the common, cliches and stereotypes and the white gaze kind of stories, but you also want to be true to what is a unique experience of being Black in America, which is, it has a lot of hardship. And so did you think about that as you were writing? Was that something you, were conscious about, trying to find a balance, or?
I knew I wanted to make my book real Black, unapologetically Black. I didn't want to have to explain Blackness. I didn't want to have to explain the slang, the colloquialisms, the vernacular, the setting, the beauty shop, what kind of hair they were like getting done. I didn't feel like explaining that. And much in the same way as in white literature, no one explained Greek mythology. I have to know Latin, Roman and Greek mythology, Aramaic to even read Shakespeare, right? Like you can't read Shakespeare without knowing other languages, and no one taught me that. I had to teach myself that. And so I very much wanted to make it work for white folk to have to teach yours, like you in our place, you in Memphis now, you better come correct, and reading for me is it's a verb, it's an exercise. I'm also a teacher. I wrote it in a teacher way, like what can I impart to white folk who do read, who do happen to read this book. But then I thought about it and I was like, if no white person reads that, that's fine. Yeah. As a writer for both poetry and prose, I think often of this quotation, how does it go? We younger Negro artists who create now intend to express our individual dark-skinned selves without fear or shame. If white folk are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful and ugly too. The tom-tom laughs and the tom-tom cries. If Black folk are pleased, we are glad. If not, their displeasure doesn't really matter either. We build our temples for tomorrow, strong as we know how, and we stand upon the mountain, free within ourselves. Langston Hughes said that.
I feel like we just went to
in 1925, and I think it's very much applicable today.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is my motto every time I write a sentence.
Yeah.
I intended Memphis was my expression of my very intentional dark-skinned self, without fear or shame. And if white folk are pleased, okay. And if they are not, I ain't thinking of it. That is so low on my totem pole of things. My car needs to get fixed, y'all. I don't know how I'm going to survive like this
Is
coming
someone picking
week.
you up at the airport when you get back, isn't it?
Yes, I do have someone picking me up from the airport when I get back. But we don't have
might
to
be a
talk
link to
about
the
that
Italian man, but that's a whole separate conversation.
No, we don't have to. We're not going there.
But speaking of being sort of unabashed, that's for the after party, you guys. Being unabashed about your audience, publishing, it's no secret, is going through kind of a sea change, right? And we all are, right? What kind of voices are championed, heard, get access to the marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. And, I've been in publishing for 20 years, and it's a really interesting question, I think, of thinking about individual books like Memphis or, other writers. Like, would this book have been published 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when these questions of who's the audience for this book, right? And so I do think, that's like an important question to sit with, because it shows, obviously our progress. But there's so many amazing Black women writing fiction today. It's real, it's just a bounty. And when I was growing up, I'm a little bit older than you, when I was growing up, that wasn't the case. Let alone for adult fiction that I would be out of my reach, but even for picture books or children's books, like you never saw yourself anywhere. No. And so what were your early reading inspirations? Did you feel that absence, and now that we have turned a corner, even though there's lots of progress to go, do you feel that sense of meaning too, that you are a part of a community of Black women writing?
Yeah, of course. Even growing up in Japan, like we were sometimes the only black family around, but I'd go to like the toy store and I'd have to just get like geisha dolls. So I was like, okay, well this is close enough. You know, like this is close enough to melanin for me. Like they didn't start making Barbies that looked like me in the 80s. Like I was born in the 80s, mid 80s. They didn't have that. They didn't have black dolls with natural hair. Like, and they especially didn't have it in Japan for the one black family. Oh, we got to ship out these dolls for them.
Well, they didn't have it here either, so you weren't missing anything being in Japan.
Right. So I knew there was a lack of representation from a very early age because, one, I was growing up in Japan, you know, and so I didn't see anyone who looked like me. But then also, I wouldn't see that reflected in American, in the culture, the world culture I saw.
Right.
It was very rare to see us. So my parents were instrumental in making sure I was rooted in blackness even abroad. Like they told me stories about, you know, you from Memphis though. Like you was made in Memphis, your daddy from the South Side Chicago, in the end. And we listened to black music. My auntie in Chicago would send over Janet Jackson tapes, and we'd get them in the mail. Like that's how we would get things. I'd read Jet. The subscriptions would come abroad, so we'd get Essence and Ebony and Jet, and that was like my foray into reaching black culture in America. I always felt like the diaspora, like there was a tie, a beautiful red thread that connected me, even though I was far away. So. I have to thank my parents for always rooting us in southernness
it's like
and
the
blackness.
main role of black parents, right? To like show you're in what is going to be a hard world, right? To instill in you when you're young your value, your worth, and you know your literary traditions. I did have a brief flashback though when you were talking about Jet of my brother pinning up the Beauty of the Week on his bulletin board in his room. I have distinct memories of that. For those of you who don't know, Jet had a Beauty of the Week, which was a scantily clad woman in a bathing suit usually, as a regular feature in the magazine. So there you go.
And usually very bright.
Yes, and usually
very bright.
Definitely.
So that's
there was a certain Jet type.
I wanted to make damn sure my women were dark, at least some of them were dark and full body, because I also didn't, when I would look at black women in magazines abroad, it's like, well, none of these women look like me.
Yeah. No,
like none of them did, like nothing out there resembled me, and so it was frustrating. I'm gonna be but I'm so glad now little girls don't see that. Like they have Disney movies with black princesses. We only had the Lion King, and they were lions.
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't. I'm not. I'm like, I'm not a lion. Like, I'm glad we're in Africa.
Yeah.
I'd never been. I was 9. You know, I had never been. I was like, I don't connect with. I've never seen these animals before in Memphis, and I don't. You know, so and. Wasn't that like one of the Home Improvement little boys the voice of Simba? So that was weird, right? Yeah, that was odd. I was like, well, they're white actors in the movie. But you know, God bless Elton John. That's all I'll say.
We've had so many wonderful digressions in this meandering conversation. I love it. So there's so many wonderful. I would say like small moments in this book that are very powerful to me. Like I loved when Stanley, this is not giving anything away because they're smaller moments, but when like Stanley is walking Miriam down the aisle, or when, speaking of parents sort of preparing themselves for the world, when you know, Hazel throws the water on Miriam when at the kitchen table, you know, when she's like, and then she says, "You're ready."
Yeah,
you know, which is like such
preparing
a little,
her for the sit-ins.
like powerful moment of like she didn't know what was going to happen, and like she wanted to, you know, make sure she was ready. So I love, you know, all the little like moments of color and texture that then add up to this, you know, bigger kaleidoscope.
I got that from The Butler.
Oh,
yeah, The Butler. Remember those scenes where they were preparing for the sit-ins and everybody?
Because you have to keep your cool, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have to be prepared then that you're going to like stay completely calm.
FMO did that. We would prepare our students back in the day for sit-ins and for the racial slurs and the mustard thrown and the ketchup. You know, they'd throw salt at it. You know, anything that'll burn and sting and or be hot food. Sometimes folks were burned for life because they throw a hot plate of something at them. Coffee.
And to not react is
Hot
just like
coffee.
beyond.
Can you imagine? 10 years old and having hot coffee thrown on you? Because you know.
Yeah.
This country, it's a trip, huh?
It sure is. But I mean, speaking of that, though, I think that we have to. Books like this, it's one thing to have all the great nonfiction out there, which, is important. People should be reading race history and et cetera, et cetera. But, I think fiction is another way in to really understand, like when you can relate to people, even if you don't know the history and you can't name Supreme Court cases and you don't know, landmark decisions and laws and when they changed, et cetera, you can relate to a veteran coming home from the war, even, if you don't know the history behind the GI Bill and the discrimination there, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think it's really powerful to give people that to hold on to. So with that said, what's your favorite part of the book? And would you read something for us? Now that we have a poem, we had a poetry resuscitation, I'm more than ready for reading. I love when authors read in their own words. So favorite part and then an excerpt.
When Miriam finally really sees Joan's art, that's my favorite part. Chapter 32. And it's the last chapter that I wrote. And I wrote it in a morning. I pushed that out in a few hours, and I emailed it over to Katie, and I said, I'm done. I said, this is it. And it was just such a glorious morning writing it. I can't believe I wrote it so quickly, too, and I just poured out of me. It was such a great day. I wrote it in Memphis.
That feels fitting too. That it wasn't in Cuba actually at that moment. It was in Memphis. So that feels nice to like bring it home at home.
I think it was winter, maybe February, something like that. Oh, beautiful day.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Okay, read for us something, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
Give me 1 second, y'all. All right. He told her everything. How he had fled Chicago, enlisted even to the surprise of his twin brother, Bird. But he had to leave that city, had to, and Bird eventually had understood. Both had been born of the year of the bird flu pandemic of '57 that claimed thousands, but not their mother. Marvel pushed her twin boys out into a frigid November night, coughing all the while from the virus. He told her of how he had risen in the Corps, arrived from the Accelerated Officers Program in Quantico, Virginia, to be stationed as a first lieutenant in Millington, not a half hour away. And he had arrived in May to find Memphis in full bloom. Memphis in May reminded him of Coleridge's Ode to Xanadu. Stately pleasure domes were massive plantation houses with wraparound porches on every tier, and the majesty of the Mississippi River could put to shame any sacredness of the Alf. Magnolias were white with bloom and as fragrant as honeysuckle. The air was thick with green. In the evenings, no matter the day, he could smell barbecue roasting in warm smokers, and on Fridays, the countless church fish fries permeated the moist, humid air, made it crackle. There was music. There was always music in Memphis. Old gramophones and Cadillacs blaring, and oval-shaped wooden home radios were always on and at full blast, and he heard voices that would shame the Archangel Gabriel, Big Mama Thornton, Fury Lewis, the long, immortal wail of Howlin' Wolf. Jax noticed that niggas in Memphis strutted. Not that black folk in Chicago didn't. But Jax could only remember the fierce wind of his city. Images of black figures bundled in layers of down, walking slanted against the brute force off the angry wind off Lake Michigan. Here, Memphis niggas waltzed down the street as if in tempo to the music that was as omnipresent as God. Black folk loving every second of their blackness. At night, he would head down on Beale Street with the other single officers, eyes wide with awe. All the black streets held nothing but black bodies. Beale was filled with black folk drinking whiskey and laughing and loving in dark corners and singing and drawing switchblades and tuning guitars and chewing tobacco and dancing, and cotton was knee-high. Green fields were tilled in neat rows of cotton overflowing white. There were fields of the inedible fruit, the crop that had brought his ancestors and the ancestors of every other black person he ever knew to this country, to pluck and to pick without a cent, without an acknowledgement of their dignity for 400 years. Now that he had arrived in the South, he told Miriam he didn't understand how anyone could ever leave it.
So questions. Well, I'm going to ask, think of your questions. I have one more follow-up because it's a natural segue.
Okay.
What are you working on next? What's happening now?
I owe Katie a poetry book. I have to edit that real quick. Oh, Lord, I don't know when I'm going to do that,
So you got to go
Katie.
soon? Got it?
Yeah, I don't know. And then I fly to Italy June 1st to start the second novel.
How exciting.
Yes, yeah.
Can you tell us anything about it, or you're holding it close to your vest for now?
It will be the most beautiful thing.
You heard it here first, folks.
That's it. I'm going to try and make it sing for y'all. I'm going to try and make it sing.
Well, thank you so much. We'll take some questions.
Thank y'all.
I'm also happy to shout out the questions if you don't want to come to the microphone if you're too shy. I can listen and then tell the folks at home. Hi, folks at home.
I had to go on the Today Show on Monday. Y'all can stand up. I mean, you know, like, there was some of it. Oh, yes, last night, nobody wanted, it was just a Zoom, and nobody was speaking. They're like, oh, I'm just going to type my question. I said, I'm not answering questions if they don't come on screen. I have to be here. I put on hair and makeup, like, you know.
Were you wearing top and bottom?
I did, because I, went out to Sugarfish afterwards, so I had to be dressed. I was in Louboutins. No, I'm a black woman in this world. I can't hide. I have to go everywhere and stand up and be. And so I don't understand why, especially white folk don't. Like, I don't get the shine. I don't have the luxury of being shy. Mm-hmm. So I really encourage people. I'm only going to answer questions if you come up.
She's the boss.
That's it for me. If I had to be on TV, y'all can do some work.
Well, we have our first.
Yes, yay! And give it up to because it does take
first,
courage.
Yeah.
Yes, it does take courage. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. This is so wonderful to hear from you. I'm curious, as you reflected on the lore or the moments from your childhood that informed this book, how did Memphis or certain characters that you wrote about or just moments from your own upbringing, how did they come to carry new meaning as you wrote about them and reflected on them versus having lived them through your life?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Why didn't you email me that question earlier? I want to take credit for that. That's so good. Man, I wish I thought of that.
All of it, yeah, it did. I mean, when you say take on new meaning, you mean when I was writing it for the book? Like how I changed things? Or, I mean, it was so cathartic to write certain scenes, especially the intimate scenes in the house. You know, even my grandfather on my dad's side, he ran a barbershop out of his house in the South Side Chicago. My great aunt ran a beauty shop out of her home. So every time I'd write these scenes, I was trying to pay homage to them. But also it was just fun to remember those things and remember everything that was said and how we just cut up, you know? And so it was a cathartic experience. It felt like I was back in those places too as I was writing them. And even the book, how the home in the book is structured like the homes in my memories, like how there's always a sunken little basement. You go 3 steps down and there's a beauty shop or a barber shop. That's how all of our homes kind of on the south side of Chicago and North Memphis are built. They're built in those kind of, everything's on 1 story. Maybe there's an attic, but maybe not. And there's just like sprawling yard, you know, and I love it. We used both decks as waiting rooms, you know, and so it's just, it was so fun to write those parts.
And especially for your first book, because I feel like your first book is always like deeply personal, right? You know, it's like you have so much to draw from, and so many, like, you know, all your journals and everything and experiences are so fresh in your head. Like, you know.
All my books will be deeply personal. I don't know how to write. I'm never going to write y'all, you know, a black woman on Mars. Sorry, that's not, yeah, you know, I'm not Octavia Butler, sorry. You know, like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not going to ever write y'all a sci-fi. I don't know what science is. It would just be blah, 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 and then science happened. Like, y'all don't want to read that, you know? So I'm always going to write stories that hopefully uplift black women, but then just frankly tell what it is like, the experience, the American experience, because it is an American experience of being black. I think that is in and of itself so interesting. I don't know why I would write other things.
Well, all your books be set in Memphis? Do you think you would go to other places, or?
Or the South. Like, I do want to establish myself as a Delta writer. You know, there's something really powerful about living and working and writing on the Mississippi River. You know, I've known rivers. My soul has grown deep with the river. There is something powerful about waking up on the Mississippi River every day and knowing that I can do this better than Twain, better than Faulkner, better than Hemingway, better than all them racist white boys have ever done it. So
and sober.
And sober. Right. And you know, without beating my wife and like, I mean, Jesus Lord, that man. I don't know why folk like him, but whatever. But yeah, it's a deeply moving experience writing about your family. I don't see why writers write about other things. I guess maybe they don't like their family. I don't know.
Well, that's also a reason maybe to write about them.
Yes, why not? Hey, Michelle. That's my publicist.
Well, I mean, and it comes from a genuine place, because I've thought about it a lot, and I actually haven't asked you. I feel like I've asked you 18 million other things, but like, you did so much research for this book, right? You know, you had to like really enmesh yourself in your family's history. What was like the most amazing or interesting thing that you were able to tell your family that they didn't know already?
Another good, you're knocking out of the park. Everyone's showing me up here, Tara.
I called my mom. When did I call her? From some country. And I said, your daddy was a World War II hero. She had no idea.
No way.
And I said, not only that, he, on April 11th, 1945, he rolled his 183rd Combat Battalion into Buchenwald, the children's camp, and saved them all. There was a little boy there who opened up the door, and he said that these huge soldiers, these black angels, huge, just took up the whole frame of the doorway. And they would sit down with the children and play jacks with them. And that little boy grew up to be Elie Wiesel, who wrote Night.
No way.
My grandfather has saved this world entire. And if it wasn't for him, we'd have no night. And then he has to come home to a country that disenfranchises him.
How did you find this out? What archives?
I did research. How did I find this out? Yeah, like I said.
But I mean,
What did my mom say? She was shocked. She said, "What? Really?"
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. I found at the Withers Museum on Bill Street, never before pictures of my grandfather, his funeral.
That's amazing.
It was standing room only, you know.
So powerful.
So it's been so powerful. The primary documents, like finding those, unearthing those, but then also writing the fictional parts of it. It's just been a joy. I feel as if I could write literally a nonfiction.
You could. I mean, that's a memoir right there.
Yeah, just about
that's
all.
Incredible story.
His life, and My family, we just crazy. That's Stringfellows. I don't know.
But I mean, it's true, shining a light, because like so much of the Greatest Generation and World War II heroism is so focused on white soldiers, right? Like in the common, just the imagery and everything is, these are the heroes, and it really begs the question of like who gets to be a hero and who gets to be celebrated as a hero. So your dad's or your grandfather's picture wasn't on the cover of the New York Times, but it deserved to be. So that's really powerful to.
We have a few questions from Zoom audience here.
Yes, please.
The first one is from Ellen Grove. Who do you think has influenced or inspired your writing, and what are you reading now?
Okay, so that's the second part of the question is very easy. I love poetry. So right now I'm reading Oh, You Thought This Was a Date? Apocalypse Poems. That is the title. It's my best friend, C. Russell Price, wrote it. And we were both very poor in Chicago, writing at the same time, getting our MFAs, and we lived down the street, and we'd go over and just drink and do the editing of what we wrote that day together. We'd split a bottle of Yellowtail. We'd do dollar tacos. We'd eat like half a taco. Like, we were poor. And we'd sit there and we'd write, and now we both have best-selling books. Their book is number 8 right now on Amazon for poetry.
Amazing.
It doesn't even come out till June. Northwestern University Press is publishing it. So that is the book I brought with me to New York, that is in my luggage, that will always be with like that. And they can write. When I talk, they can write. And I think it's just high time that we read more Southern and queer poetry.
Amen.
I just find it really interesting, and they are one of the greatest poets I know. So C. Russell Price, Oh, I Thought This Was a Date, Apocalypse Poems will change your life. It was your life before that book, and then your life after. As far as people who inspire me, I don't know if the Zoom question means people in general or other writers, but then again, it's going to be poetry. If it's a writing question, it's going to be poetry. I think the standard is Sonia Sanchez. You don't get better than her. You don't get better than Lucille Clifton. You don't get better than Carolyn Rogers.
What about Gwendolyn Brooks?
Gwendolyn
Favorite of mine, and you
Brooks.
went to her exhibit today.
I saw the Gwendolyn Brooks exhibit at the Morgan Library yesterday. I was crying and screaming. Everyone's asking me to leave. They're like, ma'am, calm down. Like, I was jumping up and down. I was like, oh my God, a first edition. And then they had a first edition of like Sonia Sanchez. I saw a first edition of Don L. Lee, who is actually Hakeem Madhubuti, who published my first book of poetry in Chicago. So to see the first work of his just there in the museum, I was just screaming. Like, so for me, poets do it. Langston Hughes, County Cullen, I love the Harlem Renaissance.
June Jordan, big June Jordan fan, yeah.
Warsan Shirey. For a modern poet, Warsan Shirey is
I actually tried to buy
this.
her collection.
I also have that. Yeah, she sent me one with a sweet little note.
Oh, that's so nice.
I know. I'm like, what? She likes me. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's crazy. I'm obsessed with her. But she has a new book out too.
Yeah.
What is it?
Good.
Bless the Daughters Raised by a Voice in Your Head. And that's also in my
Yeah.
luggage.
Yeah.
So
That's really good.
All right. Go ahead.
you look gorgeous.
First of all, thank you. First of all, my man flew me out to come see you, so.
Wow, that's right. Yes. I know that's right. All that black love. It'd be hitting different, that black love, don't it? Oh,
Wow. You win,
Myron.
sir. You win.
Oh, real life Myron. Okay, I know that's right.
My favorite supporting characters are Miss Dawn and Stanley, and I just love how they were a great reminder of why it's so important to have individuals who are close to you beyond your family.
Right.
And so I just wanted to know, why did you feel like it was necessary to show their close relationship with the North family?
Because I didn't get here alone. It took a village. My team here, Sumia, you're sitting at the table with my agent. She's all the way in the back. Sumia, she signed with me. I didn't have a penny. I was like negative bank account. I didn't have a book. I had 20 pages in a dream, and she took a chance on me. I have so many. I feel like they're angels around me. Pastor T.D. Jakes once stated in a sermon that confidants are people you can tell anything to. They'll get you out of the jailhouse. You can tell your hopes and your dreams to them. He says, if you have one or two in your life, you are a truly blessed person. I'm gonna cry. I have so many here tonight, and I don't know why. I can tell so many people my hopes and dreams. I'm very blessed.
It's amazing.
And so that's why I put those other people in the book, because if it wasn't for my editor, my agent, my professors taking chances on me, I don't know why they did that. I don't know. I just think I'm a really skinny, kind of mosquito-looking thing from North Memphis projects, who grew up on food stamps. So the fact that I'm even here tonight, I didn't get here, I didn't do this on my own. God sent these people into my life, and
well, that's a beautiful part of writing a book, is that you get to say that publicly and emotionally, and so that's amazing. Very beautiful moment. Thank you for your question.
All right, we've got one last question here, and then we'll just hang out in here and vibe with each other, and Tara will personalize books. Okay, this one is from Melody Fuller. What is your advice for a Black woman writer trying to find an agent?
I'll tell you what I did. I stalked them all. I made a list in my journal for like a year, and I would Sumia was always at the top of the list, but I would just kind of I would just Google Black agents or agents who like Blackness, like honestly. And I would just research agents in New York and LA or I would actually, no one tells you to do this. If you go to your favorite books published by Black women and you go to the acknowledgments or even the copyrighted page, they'll list the agency they're with. So I would do that. I would go to my favorite books of favorite Black authors, and I would see who their agent was. Like, oh, who's Britt Bennett's agent? Like you do that, and you make your list, and then you stalk these people. I stalked Sumia for like a year or two. Like I found every interview she'd ever been in online. If the interview was print, I went to the Northwestern Library to the periodical section, and I found the print journal, and I read the interview. I would see what they were looking for. I would listen to free Zoom. Like sometimes they would have like a webinar with some agent in the city of New York, and telling what they're looking for and what's hot to them right now. I'd read all of their bios to see what their favorite things are, and I would always pick, people who had an interest in Southern Gothic, Southern Surrealism, Black women's stories, anything avant-garde and feminist. I feel like I felt like Memphis would fit in each of those. So that's who I went to. And then I just sent them query letters. It takes about 6 months to maybe even a year to hear back. I would put the dates. I sent the original emails, and then I'd be like, okay, 6 months from now is this, and I would put that in a column, and then I would mark my calendar on my computer, and I'd sit and wait, and I'd do it over and over and over again. And that's how, I got an agent. But honestly, I really don't know how else you do it. You kind of just have to stalk and research.
Have patience.
As a Black woman, don't have a white male agent. I'll tell you that. That would just be a waste of everybody's time. So I don't recommend. I don't know what they about or who they are. Don't Google it. Just don't Google them. They have enough business. We don't need to be seeking them out for our kind of stuff.
All right, well, let's give them a big hand, everyone.
That's how we end. Yes.